Hello, good morning, everyone. So, you're welcome to the second episode of Drive Through with Mona, where I share, information and learnings about business with each and every one of you. So, today, what we have to discuss today is the moment you get a business idea, what are the first couple of things you are supposed to do? I think the first one, which is I think the most important, is most of the time these ideas come maybe in sleep or immediately you wake up, and oftentimes these ideas are very fleeting, right? So the best thing you have to do is to first of all, in your best words, write it down, right? Once you've written it down, the next step is for you to now start assessing its viability. And this can come in different ways, right? The word that people typically use at this point is market research, right? And in market research, you're supposed to first of all do PESTEL analysis, right? So you're looking at the political landscape, the economic landscape, the social landscape, the technological landscape, the environmental landscape, and obviously and most importantly, the legal landscape. And the reason why this is because you might have an idea, but because of the political nature of the country in which you want to launch that business, might not allow for some of the ideas. For example, in the northeastern part of Nigeria, and even in some states, they have banned the use of delivery bikes, and this is because some of the times, some security challenges in those places make it difficult for people to use bikes, because most of the time criminal elements use bikes to create panic and havoc, right? And so because of the security infrastructure, they need to be able to do that, to at least try their own best to secure their states. And so you need to also look beyond that. Economically, can people be able to pay for the type of service that you're trying to launch into that market, right? Is the tech ready? So for example, in the early days, and this is something that I came across on Facebook this morning, the early days of Jovago, KMU, and all the initial internet companies that were funded by Rocket Internet in the early, I would say, late 2000s, before, like between 2000 and 2015, right? So many of these companies that launched early, internet companies shut up shop, right? And this is companies that even succeeded in raising, foreign investment, for their companies. And you see that a lot of them was at that time. People state that at that time the internet was expensive. The market wasn't aware. They had to spend a lot of money on user education, on consumer education, and so you see that people would argue that their timing wasn't right in the market, right? Payment systems weren't that simple to integrate. Most of them had to build their own payment infrastructure, and then many of them were e-commerce, right? And so logistics was still a huge issue. Many of the existing logistics companies weren't even existing at the time, and even the large players in the transport industry that have been there since time immemorial didn't do door to door. So it was difficult. These guys had to start building their infrastructure from scratch, and therefore they didn't have access to the sort of funding that startups have access to, and that was what led to their ultimate demise. If looking at the viewpoints of many people that commented on that post. And so you see it's most of the time what makes companies successful is they launch at the right time. They the customers are ready, they are aware, they know what they want, right? But most of the time all these things don't come into play at the right time. But as a company, if you do your PESTEL research, it will not only inform you about the potential challenges, it will also inform you about the potential opportunities. And so these are the things that one has to be aware of. And once you do that, you also do general market research, right? Study about potential businesses, potential competitors. You're supposed to do, I think it's called Porter's 5 Forces, right? Look at what would be the potential customer strength, right? Is it the customers? Are there a lot of competitors, right? And so the customers themselves have the power, right? They can decide that today they'll use this player, tomorrow they'll use another player. Or is it that there's few providers and or few companies like yours that are providing the service, and in which case you now have the power. You have the power over the customers. You can dictate terms. So, for example, in Nigeria, the two major cement companies, right, Bua and Dangote, and this gives them some sort of monopoly in the cement market, right? Customers don't have, and don't have the, how will I say, the so much the choice, right? They don't have like a lot of options to choose from, and so this gives these cement companies that edge over their consumers. Or is there a presence of substitutes, right? For example, even if I don't have access to tea, right, but I have access to cocoa, I can drink cocoa instead of drinking tea. Same thing with coffee. Are there substitutes in that market? And this is one of the things you also need to be able to say, that even if you're the only, that you appear that you have first mover advantage, there are other ways that those consumers or those businesses that you're trying to serve have been solving their own issues and their own problems before you came into the market. So you need to be able to really look at it and see, okay, even if my business is relatively new, how are these companies or how are these businesses or these individuals solving those problems beforehand, right? For example, there was a company called Zoto that a lot of us, I would say millennials, really jumped on, right? This was they came up at a time where people used to buy recharge cards and recharge slips, right? You go to the corner shop and you're able to purchase what they call a recharge card in Nigeria, right? So this gives you airtime minutes and things like that, right? So this is coming from a time like that, and these guys made it possible for you to be able to buy minutes online, airtime, right? So this was really innovative. They had a very strong moat. But what made it difficult for them was that, first of all, people were used to doing it the normal way, right? And then what then came was that banks were releasing their apps, right? And then it just became an added service for the banks, through their apps, right? So you're able to, transfer money, you're able to receive money, you're able to pay, bills online, and then you're not able to purchase recharge cards. And so it's very, very clear that although that they had first mover advantage, it was something that potential businesses could just add as an extra and add-on service. So one of the things that you need to think about deeply is how easy would it be for an external company within another space to easily come into that space. And it's called barrier to entry, right? So how difficult is it for new players or existing players or existing substitutes to be able to come into that industry? And these are things that a lot of people don't look at when they're able to set up a business, right? But it's very critical. So the Porter's 5 forces, the PESTEL analysis, and general market research. Does this idea, has it worked in other countries, especially countries with similar, statistics, population, income, things like that? So most of the time in Africa, right, if we're supposed to look at an idea, we look at how was it done, in countries. How is it done in countries like India? Has a startup there successfully been able to implement such an idea, right? And that's kind of, because they share similarities. Even Brazil, in South America, they share very, very, very strong similarities with Africa. And so it's now up to you to now be able to assess, is this something I can do, right? And although things like first mover advantage is good, but most of the time, and if you look at it, most of the time people that move first don't necessarily win. And this is because other companies can study what you do and try and do it better. So sometimes first mover advantage is an advantage, right? But what are the chances that you're going to be able to capitalize on that advantage? And so I think with these 3 points, doing research about the industry, about the country, doing PESTEL analysis, doing Porter's 5 forces, I think a combination of all these 3 would give you a strong idea whether this business has the potential to survive, right? Regardless of going into the in-depth research about pricing, how you're going to access the market, how you're going to win customers and things like that. This overall research about the industry would make you decide early enough whether the idea is viable or not. Thank you so much for attending Drive Through Imuna. I hope this session was informative for you. And if it is, or you think that a business owner that might benefit from this sort of information, please do share. If you're a business owner, please do subscribe. I will try as much as possible to share, very critical information that will be necessary for you and the growth of your business. Thank you for attending this show. Bless.